Hi, my name is Michael Jackson. What I'll be doing now is presenting my interpersonal communication project. I will first begin by stating my overarching goal. I will then discuss what enlarging the conversation looks like to me. Next, I will discuss my background in behavior health blend and how it has influenced my conversations. I will also discuss potential barriers as potential barriers and possible solution to noise pollution. Lastly, I will discuss my own action plan. An overarching goal for my life personally and in my career, I would like to communicate with others respectfully and honestly. This will be allowing others to talk while I listen, staying away from communication traps such as Perry Mason's ritual listening. I would like to show the love of Christ in my daily communication. Enlarging the conversation, in my opinion, is knowing how to be the listener when others are talking and knowing how to be the talker when others are listening. It is also creating a space for an open, honest, respectable conversation. What that looks like is not interrupting, not using one-worded answers, and not judging others. And also not trying to solve others' problems. Enlarging the conversation allows yourself and others to express themselves freely, bouncing back and forth from each other's ideas. Now let's talk a little bit about myself. To start off, I am 33 years old. I am the middle of 4 boys. I've been married for about 1 year, 9 months to a social worker, and we have a beautiful daughter who is 9 months, and her nickname is Gigi. I'm currently a student at Liberty University pursuing my master's degree in counseling. I have a bachelor's degree from Northern Illinois University. I have experience in working in many different populations, from children to elderly. I've worked with clients with behavior issues, mental issues, misconduct issues, been all over the board. For my position that I've held throughout my career, communication has been very important and also been one of the keys to being successful. I noticed that when I was a supervisor, communication is very important, not only to the agency but also the hospital, because I used to work at a hospital, and it also ensured that the shift ran smoothly, and being able to communicate effectively with staff and management, it made a big difference being able to communicate. Now let's talk about behavior blends and personality patterns that each individual possess. Behavior blends are described how someone acts and how they think others should act in public. There's basically 4 basic personality types. These types are also known as temperaments, which blend together to determine your unique personality. To help us understand often the way we feel, think, and the way we act. The following are 4 quadrants of the DISC model. D is an active / task oriented. I, active / people oriented, which is number 2. Number 3 is S, passive / people oriented, and C, which is passive / task oriented. So those are the 4 different types of behavioral blends. So what we'll do now is let's look at my own personality blend. What's expected of me is SI, steady influencers, but actually with me it's IDS, which is inspiring, driven, submissive. as you can see, I'm expected to be people-oriented, but I am not always a people person. I am motivated to impress others and can also be controlling at times. The uniquely you assessment determined that I am a combination of 3 temperaments. This may cause people to be sometimes confused by my words or my actions. Later on in the presentation, I will talk about how this can be a barrier when it comes to personality blends. Now, let's talk about my Quindom results. My results for the Quindom test came out to be 62%, stating that I can interrupt others' feelings and actions. Now I will discuss my potential barriers. in my interpersonal context and how I'm going to deal with each one. Barrier number 1 is say what you mean. Don't make them guess. Stewart states that people often use subtext rather than just saying what they want. This technique is often made through jokes, questions, indirect comments, or body language. My behavior blend stated that due to my combination of temperaments, I may be hard to read by some. I often use jokes as indirect comments to get my point. I also use jokes as indirect comments to get my point across. A solution for this barrier is to practice just being honest and saying what you really mean, and not, using any other way to express yourself. This barrier, this can bring me to my next barrier, which is Perry Mason. Perry Mason distinguishes statements and accusations with question marks. Many people, including myself, use statements as questions rather than just making the statement. This often causes friction and arguments. My behavior blend stated that I can be a bit of a sweet talker and use my own words to make people do things which, cannot be good. Just like barrier number 1, it's important to just say what you mean. Perry Mason distinguishes accusation can make the listener feel friction or cause them to feel like they have to defend themselves, which can bring me to barrier number 3. Barrier number 3, which is words breeding resistance. Burley Allen stated that people have difficulty dealing with resistance effectively. The third barrier for me is that I can use language and body language that may make others resist what I'm saying, even if they believe or don't believe in it. My behavior blend stated that I can be demanding and controlling, which can make others resist what I'm saying because it's being or seen as being controlling. There are times with Perry Mason and times where I am too direct. Burley Allen states that words such as unreliable, impatient, emotional, inconsiderate never are words or statements that basically those are words that build resistance. Any solution would be pause and consider my words carefully, and that would truly express the way I feel, and not, talk in circles. Or finally, this brings us to barrier number 4, self-awareness. I choose self-awareness as my final barrier because it brings together all of my barriers. Burley Allen defines self-awareness as tuning into oneself by listening carefully on what you say and how you say it. Many times I can be demanding, controlling, using Perry Mason, or be a sweet talker. Being self-aware of my words and body language can help me be more of an effective listener and a talker. A solution to being more self-aware is using Peterson's listener talker cards. This will allow me to focus on the listener and be more aware of how basically I'm listening. Next, internal pollution can be fatigue, sickness, emotional stress, green flag words, biased listening, hearing what you want to hear. Solution can be focused on what the listener is saying to resist biased listening, which your language, and try to be free from physical fatigue or stress. Internal pollution can be loud noises, room temperature, distractions, cell phone ringing, clock watching. Solution to this can be turning off your cell phone, stopping any noises, moving away from the distraction. Finally, to sum up, in my personal life, communication has never been a problem, or at least I didn't think it was until taking the course of HSCO508 at Liberty University. I found that I am not self-aware of my body language and words, and also communication traps that I've been using. I interpret and basically that in my life I've can be perceived as a ritual listener. As of taking this course, an action plan that I've incorporated for myself is I plan on using talker listener cards to help create an open, honest space without interrupting or without ritual listening. I plan on being self-aware during communication in my personal life and in my career, which I think both are important aspects. So those are both areas that I can probably use, some tuning of the way I'm listening. I also want to be aware of using proper words and not creating resistance in my counseling or in my personal life. So some of these techniques would help me in both aspects with my career and in my personal life. And I want to thank you for listening to my presentation.